Formula One, we race March to December. We tend to be quieter January and February. I try and not let that period of lull stop me from improving myself. So if I have downtime, I will make sure that I'm upskilling myself. I'm learning something new.
Please, can you tell us what makes the sports industry so unique to you, and what were the barriers you faced in developing your career so far?
The sports industry has always been close to my heart. I guess playing personally sports at a fairly high level back home in Italy, and then obviously dropping out of the actual performance side, I've always been quite intrigued in terms of how the mechanics of a sporting organization, a league, a team, even an athlete as an individual work, especially on the commercial side. So I just really wanted to be able to see that world from behind the scenes and not just be a fan of sports. And then in terms of barriers to entry, I think being a female in sports can create barriers in its own right, mostly because I think sometimes there's this general assumption that as a female, I know less of the sport I work for or sports in general, so I have less knowledge, even though I don't actually believe that working in sports always requires that in-depth knowledge of sports. Or, for example, knowing all the players on a football team, I don't think that necessarily adds to your commercial acumen, but it is an assumption that is made. But I think the biggest barrier has been myself and my own imposter syndrome. Sometimes, you get in your own head. I think at any stage in life, whether you're a student not thinking you can ace your exams, whether you're a professional not thinking you can get that promotion, you can talk at the conference, you can host the meeting. So I think that's been one of my biggest barriers, but I think there's ways that you can tweak and rewire your brain to make sure that you take that imposter syndrome and you turn it more into a sort of make it till you break it type of thing. No, fake it till you make it till you make it type of thing. And kind of turn it into your own power. Like, you are there for a reason and you've been asked to be here for a reason. You've worked hard for this, and now you're going to show everyone how capable you are.
Great answer. And I guess building on for that last question, and you have answered it slightly there, but are there any kind of specific steps you've taken to overcome those barriers? I know you just outlined a few, but is there any more detail you could go into?
Yeah, I think I just personally make sure that I'm working at the best of my abilities. I think sometimes, especially in sports, because it's such a sometimes seasonal, but in terms of like leagues go on for certain periods of time. So for example, Formula One, we race March to December. We tend to be quieter January and February. I try and not let that period of lull stop me from improving myself. So if I have downtime, I will make sure that I'm upskilling myself. I'm learning something new. I'm making sure that I'm staying on top of relevant trends, seeing what's going on. There will be other sports going on. What are they doing? How are they overcoming obstacles? Like this year, COVID was the perfect example. What is everyone doing? So in terms of overcoming that imposter syndrome, I think as long as you know within yourself that you are working to the best of your abilities, you are upskilling yourself, you are networking with the right people, learning new things every day, every week, every month. Obviously, it depends on what your schedule is looking like. Take care of your mental health, but there's ways that you can make sure that you're like at the top of your game and pushing as hard as you can.
Sounds great. Can you please tell us about the kind of range of roles you've come across that are available in the industry for our students, for young people that are passionate and looking to get into the sporting industry?
Honestly, I think this is the great thing about the sporting industry, is that sometimes I think if you haven't been in it yet, you can be quite closed-minded and you can't see past, for example, maybe an athlete and sponsor agent relation, let's say, or a coaching role, or more of the performance roles, like looking at data analytics from a performance side, or a nutritionist taking care of the athletes. I think obviously all of the performance side exists, but then there's a business that needs to run. So every sporting entity, from the smallest to the largest, will likely have every role that other companies and other industries might have. So you have PR and comms teams that are making sure that all your communications are in line with what the brand needs and what the general messaging is. You'll have teams of designers that are making sure that your image is aligned, that you have the updated logo, that your decks look the way that they should be looking. You have salespeople that are selling all sorts of different things, from rights to membership packages to tickets. You have people like me doing data analytics, where you're looking at not data analytics from a performance side, but from a commercial side. So what are our fans doing? How are they behaving? How many people are watching on TV? What are they doing on social media? You have social media teams dealing with everything on all of our platforms, new platforms coming in. You join esports, you're on Twitch. TikTok is suddenly the biggest thing ever. So you have new people joining that can take care of TikTok. You have marketing people, again, that are doing everything from SEO search to partnership marketing. So you're working with cool brands to make sure that the storytelling is right. There's just so many roles that sometimes you forget exists, and you can't even imagine them existing in a sporting world. But at the end of the day, you just have to think of any sporting entity as a normal business, and they will have all of those roles. They'll have even the, let's say, I don't want to say it in the wrong way, not the least popular roles, but you'll have people that work in finance, you'll have the lawyers, you'll have the procurement team. Every role needs to be filled out to be able to run a business. And so the opportunities really are endless.
Sounds great. So obviously you work Formula One. How do you stay on top of a sport and event that doesn't have one specific home and travels the world for each race?
Yeah, well, Formula One is just the most incredible organization, and I didn't know much about it when I first joined nearly 3 years ago. And then during these three years, I've learned so much. But as an organization, we actually produce all of our own broadcast. So we have this, not only do we have the 10 teams, 20 drivers, all the engineers traveling around the 22 locations across the world, because we are in all continents except Africa. But we also have a team of broadcast TV producers that travel to every race, and in 3 or 4 days set up this whole broadcast center to be able to do a 3-4 day event, broadcast it to millions of people on TV. So it's actually the most outstanding setup ever. However, we do have all of our commercial operations are actually remote. So we are based in London and everything is done out of there. But because we have relationships with promoters that are local, so all of the individual circuits, we're able to obviously work with them to be able to stay on top of everything. But because of the way that technology works now, we're able to do all of our commercials remotely from London. So it's much easier to stay on top of everything. And, you know, obviously TV social allows us to stay fully connected and actually see what goes on race by race. And we can do live data analysis as well when needed.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And finally, what advice would you give to all students aspiring to have long, successful careers in the sports industry?
Advice. I feel like I'm just repeating what I said in the conference before, but I think the most important thing is to be resilient and to realize that it's not a straight path to success. I think as an individual, I try and be as flexible as possible. I came into the sporting industry doing one role, and my role is now completely different to what I started with nearly 6 years ago. If you allow yourself that flexibility, you can really navigate through the sporting industry and find what best suits you, what you are best at, where you can offer the most value. So I think it's just that. Be flexible. Don't get too set on a role, because once you're in the industry, as I've mentioned before, you'll find another 100 roles that you've never even heard of and that you might like better. And then be resilient. Don't let people knock you down. Sometimes things go wrong and you do make mistakes, but I think it's really important to learn from those and then take a step back and be able to, with a clear head, just analyze what you did, what happened, and then how you can improve on that. to be successful, because I don't think any successful person has never made mistakes or not had a minor setbacks. So yeah, resiliency.
Resilience, great message to end on.